You want to be a developer who is competent by the tech industry standards, but you aren't sure how to get there. OmniQuotient is here to help. By selecting the tech that you use and answering questions belonging to these technologies, you can check if you are currently using the recommended practices in coding. If you aren't, you will learn what these practices are, so you can go ahead, learn them, and become a better developer producing better code. OmniQuotient. Learn how professionals code.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hey. How was your week, Bert?
I'm happy today it's the weekend. I'll just say that. How about you, Jerv?
Same. I wasn't actually feeling that well yesterday, but I think because I took a leave and then I rested lang, so I kind of feel better now. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that you're feeling better. Cool.
I hope everyone's healthy tonight, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us again this evening. We have a very cool topic, and we'll probably, we're changing the format a bit tonight, no? So you guys know we're talking about AI, right? And so we're changing the format a bit, no? Na I will be asking questions, and of course, I would still, speak my thoughts about the subject, but I prepared several questions for Albert on AI, and yeah. So Albert, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. I think, Bert, when you hear AI, a lot of people always, let's just jump right into it. Or you want some intro, pa? Do you want to say something about this topic? Like, are you are you invested in AI? Do you think it's
Yeah, okay.
interesting?
Yeah, let's do this. Well, the title actually says it all: artificial intelligence, the good, the bad, the ugly. And tonight, I just wanna, from a perspective of, I do AI, I do machine learning
Yeah.
projects. We build machine learning models. It's just a subset of AI, and yeah, I'll just be honest with my thoughts. Also, we'll be sharing from a more of like a philosophical perspective.
Yeah.
Not just the technical artificial intelligence, but more of philosophical, how it affects our society, how it affect our lives. More importantly, how I think it'll affect our future. Dun dun dun. Sure, I can still hear some music. I don't know if you can hear some music.
I'll tone it down a little bit. Sige.
Okay,
There.
cool.
Sige. Let's jump right into the question, no. And I think for a lot of people, especially non-technical folks, I think what we want to do first tonight would be to kind of demystify AI, no, if you agree. So I think the first question that I would ask you is, let's define AI, to very simple layman's terms muna, no? Like maybe like how would you define AI to a 10-year-old? And then right after that could be like a high school student, and then an IT college graduate, let's call it, and then next one would be a professional. So let's start with a 10-year-old. So how would you demystify AI for a 10-year-old? How would you explain AI?
So today, a 10-year-old to a 10-year-old today, I would say it's actually harder to explain AI. It's actually harder to explain AI to an older person than it is to a younger person, because 10-year-olds today, they just lived with AI. Like you can just say, Google Home, Alexa, your smartphone that gives you suggestions. Anything that exhibits some form of smartness is actually artificial intelligence. Now, as you actually define that more as you grow older, it becomes more complicated than that. But just basically anything that exhibits some form of smartness.
So something that's smart, no? And
Yeah.
would you say non-organic? So I mean, like dogs could be smart, right? Like
Okay, yeah. So non-organic, definitely. Has to be
so
like
machines.
machines, yeah.
Correct. Sige. How about like a high school student? Sige. So now, iba na yung experiences niya, right? He's no longer a kid anymore, going through teenage. Like, how would you explain AI to that individual?
So I would say, at least to a high school student, I would say artificial intelligence is something where you play with, for example. Like, and I think a high school student likes to play a lot of games, right? So when you are fighting against a human or an AI, right?
Like a bot.
A bot, yes, a bot is an AI, and if a bot can beat you, like maybe that says a little bit about your intelligence versus
Oh,
the
or you're telling us the viewers and me now na bots are kind of inferior to humans at this point. Are you saying that?
No, well, okay. There was this match, right? I don't know if you remember
Mm.
this. I think a couple of years back, there was this match with Dota 2, this game, Dota 2.
Yeah.
And they OpenAI had like a sort of like an entertaining special segment there where they
Yeah.
brought in a bot that they
Yeah.
trained against
Yeah.
Dendi, I think. I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah. I've
And
seen
they
it.
did one on one, and I think that
Natalo.
yeah, the AI, what do you call this? Was not the AI beat Dendi, no match, right? Like it was like Dendi was like what the heck? Like this is so good. Not the same compared to all the standard AI bots that you fight in Dota 2. So at
Yeah.
that point,
Subpar.
yes, yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah,
better.
yep.
Let's talk about that later. Let's talk about how could you reach, as like let's say as a developer, how could you improve your AI? How why is it that there are like inferior AI and there are those that
Mhm,
can beat
mhm.
pro
Sure,
players at
sure,
like a game or something? How
yeah,
about let's skip the college student because I think it would probably apply the same as a high school
yeah.
student. What about a professional? Like someone working now, how would you define AI to them?
Okay. So an AI basically, maybe let's break down artificial. Artificial is easy. So artificial is like not, I would in this case not,
Natural,
or not natural, not
not
it's
organic.
organic, not organic. And then intelligence. What constitutes intelligence, right? So ability to learn, ability to
Mm.
communicate, ability to detect patterns, ability to analyze, which is essentially detecting patterns, and maybe in some ways ability to affect an intent, right? To communicate an intent, ability to respond.
Right.
So when you break down your ability to learn, ability to respond, and then communicate. So that would be like any machine that is able to, or any non-organic thing that is able to do those things. You would say intelligence. Now that's the thing with AI right now, is that it's become moving goalposts kind of thing, a definition.
Mm.
Like
That's
before,
a good way to put it.
yeah, like
Explain,
before,
explain.
many I would say decades ago, when they first built an AI that could play chess, right? Chess, like chessboard, and it could beat an average man, right? Then they called that artificial intelligence state of the art. Like, and they at the same time, actually, it's interesting during that time they were thinking like, oh no, AI is gonna take over the world because it can play chess. Yeah. But then
Mm.
now we look back at that and we think about that, that's actually very primitive form of intelligence. So then they move the
Mm.
goalposts now to other more complex games, like Go, for example. Go is much more complex
Chess.
than chess. And then so, but AI, there was an AI that was built that actually beat the best player, the best human player, several years back, and so that threshold was crossed. But then again, we don't think that, beyond that there's very little progress in terms of AI, and we don't think that that's true intelligence, being able to play Go. So what, right? Like, so now we're just kind of moving goalposts. I feel like we will just continue to move goalposts until we reach like what we call uh, general artificial intelligence, right? Which is
Mm.
basically like thinking like a human being. Then we'll
Yes,
have
yes.
then we'll have to define like what is the bare minimum of a thinking human being. Like, how would you define a bare minimum thinking human being? Like,
Let's get to that later. Let's get to that later. I think I know where you're going here. Don't get too excited muna. Don't get too excited muna. I guess sige, just sorry to cut you off there, but I guess let's kind of handhold people through the
sure,
topic, right? Like
okay,
my thinking now is after kind of demystifying to them, and I think this next question probably kind of answered it in the first one. Parang what are the applications of AI and how do we experience AI right now? No, because people think na it's just an everyday kind of thing, but it's actually powered by an AI in the back, right? So you mentioned Google Assistants earlier, right? Alexa, Google. Siri, so those things. But what else? What else are AI powered
Yeah. Okay. Well,
things that we experience or use?
sure, sure. I'll talk about some tangible things that I think are very cool. So, for example, there's a task of right now. I mean, you're from a bank, right? You're familiar with banking stuff. Usually, one of the requirements to when you open an account at a bank, you submit your ID, right?
Yeah.
And you submit your ID, you submit your credentials. You fill up a form that also contains the same name as you have in the ID. Now that we've transitioned online, people still have to submit their IDs, but now they take pictures of IDs and then they fill up a form on the app. And now
Yeah.
that goes to the bank to approve or disapprove. And before we went to AI, a human being would look at the picture, right? They would
That's
look at
true. Yeah.
the picture of your ID, and then they would look at fill up the form that you filled up, and they will actually look if you submitted the correct ID, if it's your face that's in the
Yeah.
ID because you will take a selfie or something,
Mm.
and this is a very manual procedure that the person would do, right? And all day, the whole day, all they do is check photos, and 8 hours clock in, clock out. It's a very mundane task. I mean, that's okay, but it's not something I would say it's a happy job. I know nothing against that, but okay, I'll cut it short before I say other things. But basically, AI can now do that, right? AI
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
actually detect a face. There are artificial intelligence models. We call them models. Models are actually just another word for program in this case, or function application. And it can detect the ID. It can read the text in the ID. It
Yeah.
can see the face. It can compare it with another face and say
Yeah.
that if the face is the same. And we actually do this. So we've built systems like that do this. And these essentially can process much more applications in shorter amounts of time. So you're not bottlenecked by a lot of your staff. So for example, what we do now is that's like the first wave. 80% of applications are handled that way and approved by the AI model for approving the applications and verifying that it's actually legit. And then that 20% that cannot be, where the AI says, I'm not sure, right? The AI actually says that, like, it says like error, like cannot see the photo properly. It's a
Yeah.
bit blurry, or it's an old
Yeah.
photo, or it's an old ID, crumpled ID, whatever. It
Yeah.
then flags it in the system, and it's a human being who then verifies that. So instead of needing a staff of 100 to review these things, you just need the staff of 5, of 3.
Correct. Basically, the human handles the exceptions na lang, no?
Right,
Versus
right.
before, they used to handle everything. And
Yeah.
the smarter models actually right now, Bert, no, would even detect fake IDs, right? So we actually use through a partner, right? We use a set of, like, it's a SaaS tool, no? Now we subscribe to, wherein we send to them, pictures of IDs, and they're able to detect whether that's fake or not. So not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
face matching it, and then
Yep.
of course they add in stuff to, like, OCRs. No, they take
Yeah.
everything, so you don't have
They
to
check
type.
if the ID is expired.
Correct. Those things. Yeah. Which traditionally were like what you shared. No, were supposed to be done by humans before,
I'll
right?
share another real story. This one, I used to be part of a team that we built a dating app, like a Tinder kind of thing. But
Okay.
instead of submitting, like, because the problem with Tinder, I think, was catfishing. Catfishing is a term like where you think you're talking to somebody that looks like what you see in the picture, and when you actually
Yeah.
do an
Yeah.
eyeball, it's actually a different person. Like, oh my gosh, I got catfished.
Yeah.
So the concept of the app was that you would instead of sending messages only and chat to each other, you would actually send a message and a selfie along with it. Like, you can never send a message on its own. You have to send a selfie along with it. So you're always sending selfies. So
Interesting.
what you see is what you get. Now, once you run all sorts of dating apps, I think the challenge is when people apply, when there are some naughty people, so they would post like pictures of private parts, right? And so this is a problem because this scares the girls away. If the girls find this kind of, and a dating app without girls is not great. So so you need a safe space so that you can have like almost equal balance of girls and boys.
So you
And
built
so
an AI to detect the obscene stuff uploaded by people.
but yeah, that story actually here. So before we had the AI, We did it ourselves. So we had a team and some bunch of interns reviewing these photos every day,
Oh
checking one by
my.
one. And so yeah, once you see something, you cannot unsee it, right? So so that I've been scarred, and then so there until you build the AI, and that sort of like liberates you from that problem. And I think that's one of the things I'm really grateful for the applications of AI, because the AI can do that. I don't know if the AI will get scarred, um, but at least I'm not, and
Wait,
my
who
team's
knows?
not.
They have very good memory, Bert. They can't forget. So the other thing, no, the other thing that's not, I remember tuloy na when you said that, about the dating app and the obscene pictures. I remember that episode tuloy in Silicon Valley. Did you watch that before?
I haven't.
Basta they take a picture and it would say if it was like a banana or not.
Oh, no, no, no. This was like hot dog or not.
Hot dog,
Not
yeah, yeah,
banana.
hot dog.
Hot
Oh,
dog
hot
or
dog,
not. Yes, I
hot
remember
dog or
this. I remember this episode.
hot
Yeah.
dog, not hot dog. Yeah, similar.
Uh-huh.
Similar. Nakatawa.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was the other thing that I was thinking, no, about giving examples that people. I mean, obviously, right? Like I think yung mga ganon, image recognition and
Mhm.
like Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant. Those are obvious, right?
Right.
The things that are not so obvious actually are to those designers that are viewing or listening or video editors. Like there's a lot of AI in Adobe Premiere, Adobe Photoshop,
Mm.
Lightroom, because a lot of a lot of the things that you do when you edit pictures are also very mundane and very repetitive, right? And most likely people have kind of the same taste, right? In the same way as in videos, usually people are more used to 24 frames per second, and in colors and pictures, there's like, you would know that it's natural or it's, heavily filtered, etc., etc. So Adobe actually built AIs around that, right? And
Yeah.
so they have one-click solutions that are actually powered by artificial intelligence. Getting all that data from a huge number of um, I guess no subscriptions from Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom, and they train their models so that they can help you actually. No, so it's not a robot, right? There's no physical thing. You don't talk to Alexa. You don't talk to a phone or something. It just does it for you. But that's actually there's intelligence behind that. So that's something that people might not know or it's not so obvious.
Yeah, I remember a content aware delete. Like, I don't know if you know that. Like, if there's
Mm-mm-mm.
like a piece of dirt in the photo,
Yes,
like
yes,
a piece
yes.
of garbage, and then you delete it, it will actually fill in the background with like the
Yes, yes.
background.
That's so smart. Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
smart.
yeah. So you said smart, right? That's actually artificial intelligence, right? It exhibits smartness.
Correct, correct. But I guess with anything smart, right? I mean, there's so do you think like AI can perceive good and evil, Bert? Like do you think AI is good or bad? What do you think about AI?
I
I think so
think
far kasi all the examples that we said are good, right?
yeah,
But there's
okay.
been a lot of talks about being careful with what we do with this particular tool, right? So
Yeah.
so what do you think?
So asking if artificial intelligence can perceive good and evil actually brings out a much deeper fundamental question, is like, can we even, as human beings, organically intelligent, can we even truly perceive what's good and evil?
Hmm.
Because today we still debate that,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Like, I
mm,
mean, there
mm,
are a
mm.
lot of areas where they're no longer debated, right?
Yeah,
But
there's like
there
common
are,
law too, right? Like killing
yeah.
someone, like it's like we kind of in general, I think the whole world would agree that's kind of bad, right?
Yeah, but then there's like nuances, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah,
if it's
yeah.
the person's trying to kill you? Like, what if it's self
Self
defense?
defense. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
if
yeah.
killing this person will save like the trolley problem, right? Like,
Yeah. So
killing
it's not black
somebody
and
would,
white.
yes. And so, um,
So what
so
do you
I
think?
think,
So yeah, go
I
ahead.
think at this stage, definitely not.
Mm.
It would not know what good and evil is. It wouldn't perceive what's right and wrong. It would just know what is Okay, it would know what is optimized, like what's correct or incorrect towards a certain goal. Like what is the best choice towards a certain goal. For example, like in playing against Dendi, the Dota
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
is the good choice here is to kill Dendi, right? To kill
Yeah.
Dendi's character.
And who makes those goals, Bert? Those objectives? Kasi kanina you mentioned also, they trained this AI, right? What
Yeah,
does
yeah.
training actually mean? Because not everyone might
Okay.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe let's take a step back. So AI, there's multiple branches. One of the main branches of it is one is what you call machine learning, and then the other branch would be like I would categorize as non-machine learning, right? Where it's people who program a
Yeah.
computer to do certain
Yeah.
things, and so it exhibits smartness.
Yeah.
But then there's AI that is machine learning, meaning the machine learned it, and usually the machine learned it from examples based on a goal. For example, if the goal is to recognize a picture in a photo of an ID, then the AI will be trained to recognize that picture in
Correct.
the ID.
Correct. Correct.
Now, there's a subset in machine learning. There's two branches there in machine learning, and one is a supervised training, and that's where
Yeah.
you have a goal, where a human being usually says, right, your
Mm.
goal is to recognize IDs, and then the AI will deem it a success, and when it is able to recognize it beyond a certain threshold of success,
Yeah.
like 90% accuracy or 95% accuracy. But then there's this other branch of machine learning, which is unsupervised
Unsupervised. Yeah. Yeah.
training. And that one kind of doesn't really have a goal, right? That is defined by a human being. It's undefined. Like that's the beauty of unsupervised training. It kind of just emerges. Like you have like
It's able to
that's
learn patterns you may not see, right? As a
yeah,
human,
yeah,
because you're just letting it find what it can find, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You're letting it
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. 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 Let's go back to Anobert. So let's go back. Let's trace this back to good and evil. No. So
Mhm.
so when you mentioned, at this point, no, it's neither bad or evil yet. No.
Yeah,
I would actually say siguro, no, in my perspective, I
sure.
think AI is a tool. No,
Mhm.
it can either be good and evil, right? Like people would debate, are guns bad or good? It's neither, right? I mean, I could say that I can kill someone with a hammer or a spoon, right? I mean, it's the same. It's something. It's a tool. Now, again, it still depends on how you use it, no, and how, I guess in this case na ngayon with AI, how
Yeah,
you train it as well, no. So in that
right.
case, um, it's neither also because it's a tool, no. It's something that you train, no, and
Yeah,
something that you correct, right? So those things, when you actually do supervised training, diba? I mean, it's not always that the AI would get it perfect like right away, and so you correct it, right? So it's like you're raising a kid, no,
yeah,
who actually learns very fast, no.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
the way you put it is actually a good example. This is one specific category of artificial intelligence where I would say that the human or an entity is in full control over it, right? So in
Yes,
this
yes.
example, then the AI would be a tool for
Yeah.
this entity that's controlling it, whether it's like a company or a team or a
Correct,
single
correct.
person. The AI is fully at the mercy of that. Not that's bad way to say fully at the mercy, but more of like the person is fully responsible for the actions of that AI
It will
because the
respond according to how the
yep,
inputs are set,
yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
in that sense, you could actually think that the AI is the slave to the master, and the
Correct, correct.
master being the team or the human being in charge of it. Yeah.
It's getting darker na, no. But what would you say is the other one? No. So unsupervised learning, is that
So
something that's dangerous, you think?
no, I think if I mean, so unsupervised learning is just a technique, and it's a technique of arriving at a certain form of AI model.
Yeah.
Now, if that AI model is still within the control of a team, then it's
Similar pa
still a
rin, no?
tool.
Yeah,
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 it's still
yeah.
a tool. And so, if it's,
Yeah.
for example, if it's in the control of my team or your team, we would say it's like it's harmless, right? It would usually do good and everything. But if it's in the hands of somebody who wants to, recognize photos in a crowd so it can guide like a missile to hit a specific target, then in the context of whether if that person was bad, and this is where we go nuances, right? If the person was like inherently evil and should be targeted, then yeah, it may be good. But if it's being used, to target a specific person for the
Or
intents of,
race. Yeah.
yeah, so it's very much tied to the person controlling the AI. So in this, it's just a tool, and the
Yeah.
good and evil applies to the person controlling the tool.
Sige. Now that we've kind of taken a turn into parang ethics na, no? Like good
Yeah.
and evil. Like, what do you think? Like, there's, like Elon Musk talks about it so much, right? That we should be careful and we should
Yeah.
apply policies. And we kind of talked about this in the previous episode, right? So what do you think about that? Like, is there something to watch out for? I mean, is it something that everyone should be worried about, you think, or something that it's kind of maybe years from now and we probably wouldn't, I know, should not worry about it today?
Sure. I think why Elon Musk sounds the alarm here. I don't know exactly, but my theory is that because fundamentally AI is it's a relatively very powerful thing.
Yeah.
It's a relatively very powerful tool. It's
Mm.
like AI is like a gun in a knife
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
imagine if you and I, maybe
Mm.
back in the 1950s, we were classmates in college, and our teacher gave us homework to do research, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to be submitted tomorrow, and you had access to a librry, and I had
Mm.
access to Google.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
I'm gonna smoke you,
For
right?
sure.
Like
Especially if you have faster internet too.
I mean, you don't have internet. I'm saying you
Oo nga
have
pala,
a
library
library.
lang sa akin. Oo.
Yeah, and I have access to Google and Wikipedia and everything. Like you have nothing. Like you are
Yeah.
not you have access to the library, but you are nothing. You will come up with nothing compared to what I can come up with.
Yeah.
It's just so disadvantaged.
The
And
speed of
that's-
information is just
Exactly.
too fast. No. Yeah.
And
yeah.
that is what AI can do compared to an ordinary human being. So, for example, when you're talking about like detecting obscene images, I can do it at a rate of maybe 1 per 5 seconds, right? An AI can do 5,000 in 1 minute, right? Like, or in like, it can do like 5 in 1 second. Like, we are not the same. So when it comes to competing against that, hands down, the AI wins, and that's okay because it's just obscene images, right? But what if you take it to like, you're talking about other more complex tasks, like one, for example, driving. For example, what if when it comes to like investing in specific stocks, right? Now, like that, if an AI is investing in stocks, the ordinary traders and the analysts will be not able to compete. If they won't even know why they're losing money, and the AI is just playing, and the AI becomes the whale that basically takes everything, right? Can predict so
okay.
far ahead. Yeah, right. So it's basically like that. Like now it's the AI is not. If you think of the concept that the AI is the tool, then the one who has the tool will become, I would say, almost in a sense, all powerful against those that don't have an AI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I get you. Although I think those things that you mentioned are correct and true, right? But I think that's also true for any competitive space, right? Like for example, companies now, of course, there's a race in technology and they're using AI to, but I think what he is, well, I don't know. I think when I heard him talk about it, and when I heard him, I've read things about it, about what he mentions also. I think it's really more existential na like, and you kind of mentioned earlier na rin, no, na uncontrolled or something. If the AI is under the master, then it's the slave.
Yeah.
But I think he's talking about like our Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator, The Matrix kind of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, so what's your opinion about that? Like kanina kasi, I think, yeah, totoo, you should be careful because, if the person controlling that tool is like, fundamentally evil, then evil stuff would just happen X-fold, right? Because they have a very powerful tool. But in this case, it's more of humans versus this AI, I guess. No? So parang nagiging sci-fi na yung discussion. But what are your thoughts about that? You know,
Yeah,
if you
okay.
can share.
Yeah, so remember the fundamental switch will be coming from our branching out from this original topic when we said about the person or an entity is in control of the AI. Let's separate first ourselves from this thought of software AI. Let's take
Yeah.
a step away from that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about a specific artificial intelligence thing actually that already exists right now. That I would say we as humans actually don't have much control over.
Over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this exists right now. And these are basically what they call slow AIs. One example would be of like institutions or like a company, for example. Let's name one for you. Certain like a big bank, like let's just say I'm gonna just give a brand, right? Like HSBC. HSBC is a huge bank. But the point is that HSBC is this giant thing, a giant entity that basically optimizes for profits as any corporation should, right? It
Right.
optimizes
Right.
for profits for its shareholders as any corporation should, and it interfaces with human beings, right? Like it interfaces with human beings through like marketing, through
Yeah.
through transactions. It does transactions, but then it ultimately optimizes for profits.
Profits. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this
Okay.
is one example of a slow AI, because if you look at HSBC as an entity, you could say that it's actually a smart entity, right?
Yeah, it's a network of smaller brains, combined with organic brains and
Yes.
all the machines that they use, right?
Yes, and it's currently optimizing for shareholders, right? When you think about it, not a single brain that's working in HSBC and every single human in HSBC actually fully controls or fully understands HSBC as an entity. Even like the CEO of HSBC does not understand what the marketing department is doing in the nitty gritty, right? It just knows like it forms a strategy. Yeah, maybe it's a team of us.
It can
So
drive
it's-
direction, but
Yes.
I mean, it would be also inefficient if he does everything and he knows everything, right? So there's
Correct.
specialization. Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
I get what you mean.
Right. So
Okay,
now
go
you
ahead.
have like, so you can view HSBC as a slow AI that's optimizing for profits.
Mm.
And it's important to say it's slow because it is slow,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It is like, that's why we have these jokes about corporations, like to make a decision, it takes 1 week. And to make
Yeah,
it takes 2 weeks, all of these approvals. It's a
50
very big,
signatures.
yes, juggernaut. It's a juggernaut that's like, boom. But when it moves, it has huge impact
Okay.
to anybody, right? And so it does that. Now imagine, let's fast forward. Let's just imagine, it's a thought experiment. So imagine if we actually can take every single component in HSBC, what it does
Okay.
from marketing to anything, and start replacing all of the brains there with specialized AIs. So they stop so basically HSBC stops becoming a slow AI and becomes a fast AI, right?
Oh,
with
okay.
the power that it currently has, it has the power to invest in things, to turn the tide somewhere else, and it's able to then make money from somewhere else. It's basically optimizing for profit still, but it's able to accept transactions, deny transactions, make decisions, decisions on every single thing that can optimize for profit. Like think about what can it do? Maybe a better question actually is, what can it not do?
What can't
Right.
it do? Yeah, exactly. So okay. So far, you've been talking about slow AI, and that today its current version is that it's a collection of humans, robots, business processes, and business rules, right? That are aligned towards, let's just oversimplify, no? Na a single objective of
Yeah.
making profit, right? And
Yeah.
now fast forward X years, you're saying everything's gone very efficient, and a lot of those inefficient things, like we could probably say, muna, let's say just for the sake of the discussion, humans, or even the processes would get changed, right?
Right.
It's now very efficient. It's so very, very, very
And
good
it
at
would be
what
too
it's.
fast. It would be too fast for
Okay.
any human being to stop, right?
Okay. At that
Without-
point, though, like, that's still not bad, right? Like, I think in general, that would make a company very rich. it doesn't pose any existential threat so far.
Yeah, so this is where actually where the existential threat comes in, because
Okay.
like analysts are able to understand something, right? Sorry, Lendy, you had a question. We're gonna take it in shortly, but
Sige.
like analysts understand certain things, right? Like, okay, if we invest in a specific, let's just take armed conflict, for example, as an extreme. Like if we invest in this area, there's armed conflict there, or if we don't invest in an area so that armed conflict happens, right?
Okay, now
Right?
you're getting
Then
somewhere.
then the price of oil in a certain area and region would increase. That would bump, if we then we buy oil there,
Yeah.
then that would bump the price. We would make profits there.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of people are actually saying, Bert, na that's already happening now. On the back of very big, like large companies and one percenters, right? That are,
yes,
there's theory, right? Now they're controlling the world, but now that this thing is way, 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 way faster.
yeah. So the current way you'd say with the 1%ers, they're slow, right?
Yeah. Scary.
Right?
Go ahead.
If it's fast, we won't even know.
Yeah.
We won't
It's
even perceive that it's actually happening. It's happening at a rate that we can't even imagine and
Yeah,
perceive. And it's going to happen right in front of us. And, as they say, there's this saying, right? That any sufficiently advanced technology is like magic to a person. It becomes magic.
Yeah,
It becomes
yeah.
sorcery.
Yeah.
And so
You
to-
know what, you know how you put it, Bert, that I heard this from an event, a tech event actually, na when an airplane flies over the Amazon or a helicopter, the tribes would think that's a bird, right? Or something that's they don't understand kasi yun nga, it's something foreign, right? And
Yeah.
we will never fathom or understand if we were in from their perspective, no? Kasi
Yeah.
bagong bago eh. It's
Yeah.
cutting edge technology. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to take on what Lenly asked?
Sure. Go ahead, Lenly. Okay, I was there for a very quick second. Some people fear that AI is going to take over their jobs and will be taking away the need for a human workforce, at least in some industries, sometime soon. What are your thoughts on this?
Go ahead, Bert, and then I'll share my thoughts as well.
Sure. So, some people fear that AI. Okay, maybe let's. This has been happening since 50 years ago, and maybe
Yes.
instead of saying AI, we'll actually say automation
Yeah.
has been taking over jobs and the need for a human workforce for specific industries, specific segments of industry, like assembly line, for example. That has been happening for a long time. It will continue to happen. With AI, though, this kind of like it's just new, right? Like when robots entered the workforce, they kind of only
factories.
displaced manual labor.
Yeah.
So that kind of happened, and people, adjusted to kind of like the knowledge workforce. Now we're in like all the knowledge workforce. So yay, like we're all happy and safe here. Then AI happened, and now knowledge workforce is no longer safe, right? And you're talking about everything from driving. You're talking about like auditing. You're talking about image recognition. ID verification. You're even talking about stocks trading, and all these things. And so, the jobs there would definitely get replaced. And my thoughts on this is we need to figure it out as a society how we're gonna live in that kind of society where the robots can do our jobs better, that our current jobs better. So there's options like we get a new job, we adjust our skills to a new job, but then how long is it going to be before we get displaced there as well? Or we need to restructure society in such a way that we can coexist and we can exist and live really good lives still in this kind of environment.
Yeah. Just I guess my thoughts on this for today, no?
Sure.
It's just as what Albert mentioned, no? It's been happening way back, right? The farmers, they used to till land very manually with 50 people most likely. Now it's replaced with tractors, right? Machines. And just like what Albert said, nag-start siya with, people being replaced by more efficient, faster, cheaper machines that can do the job way better, right? And in the same way, ito ngayon na nag-transition nga to more intellectual stuff. Now AI is coming in. How we're actually doing this in our company is that there's this mantra by the bank's president Bert, no, and actually everyone in the bank and in even in UBX, kind of imbibe this na no one gets left behind, and so those jobs that are actually replaced by bots or automation, RPA, AI, they actually get trained. Now, if they're willing, they get trained to more high touch needing jobs like sales, right? And those things I think would take a while to be actually replaced, no, because there's still a lot of benefit and there's still a premium, probably you could say, to skin interaction, no, now you're actually interacting with someone, and someone who's real, quote unquote, right? Yeah. But I think in the future, Bert, though, let's jump to the future. So I think wait lang, para hindi masyadong sobrang parang ano naman, parang what do you call this? Parang no choice, no? I think what you should do, if you're actually fearing that now, is to retool yourself too, right? Like upscale, exactly, like study coding, right? Or things that are more future proof, you could probably say, no? And as humans, we always have to also reinvent ourselves, because there's always things that are gonna come and like, just like sickness, right? All those things you have to prepare for, kind of, right? So in the same way as your job, you have to retrain and upskill or retrain yourself, also improve. Para nga mas magiging ano ka na, less replaceable, right? In the same way as today, without AI, right? The non-performing employee would always be booted out, right? It's the same way, because yun nga, all of the companies right now are funny to what Albert gave us an example. Their goal talaga is to make profits, no? And so lower the costs and increase the revenue. So yun talaga. At the end of the day, it's like that. Go Albert.
Okay. Well, if we take a step back, this doesn't really always have to be a bad thing. Like, think about it when humans were using horse-drawn carriages or were riding on horses.
Correct.
And then the car or the automobile was invented. So then the horses got replaced, right?
By steam engines, the car.
Yeah. No. The horses got replaced, and I think it was pretty good for the horses. Like, I think it was pretty good for the horses that they got replaced by automobiles.
Hindi naman tayo horses, Bert.
Yeah, but if you think about that, Jerb, like, think about that. If you think about that, most of the times we're worried about losing our jobs to AI, because jobs are actually currently what brings us money and puts food on the table. But really, if you ask people, like, if food on the table was guaranteed, was there, would you still do your job, right? And some people would say yes. The ones who really like their jobs, the ones who like what they're doing, and the ones who don't like their jobs will say, no, I'm gonna go look for another job that maybe pays less, if food is there anyway, that I like to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you watch Star Trek? Have you seen Star Trek?
Not so much.
Okay,
I'm not a Trekkie.
Okay, well, I'm not super Trekkie, but I've looked at enough Star Trek, and the concept in Star Trek, actually, it was in this kind of world where they call it a post-scarcity world, right? Where right now we live in a scarce world, right? Resources are scarce, there's limited resources and so on. But
Everyone's competing.
Star Trek is now a world or a universe, actually, you can say, where they've invented something called the synthesizer or the replicator. Basically, it's something that can create something, right? You have this machine and you say, like, I want cappuccino, or hot dogs. I want a hot dog bun, and it'll make the hot dog bun right there from nothing.
Yeah.
And then you get
wala nang scarcity.
No more scarcity. Everybody
basic
can get
needs are basically provided.
Yeah, health, medicines. You can make a medicine that you need there. So now, in that kind of world where everybody can get what they need and what, like, if nothing is scarce, what do you do, right?
Exploration.
Exactly, and that's where the concept of, like, the human race devoted itself to
Travel.
exploration, to
Yeah.
expanding the knowledge.
Yeah.
Like that's basically it. And I think I'm kind of actually excited because where I would feel like we may be in the brink of that or something really a different alternative, right? Or that, right? Where we have like we get something where the AIs can do all the work. The
Yeah.
AIs can do all the work, most of the work, obviously, make 99%. And then we can do what you want. And by what you
Mm.
want is not usually like just sitting lazy on the couch and watching Netflix. Maybe sometimes that's what you want. But most of the time, we still do want to like, explore, to travel, to do good. We want to
Yeah.
make stuff. We want to
Yeah.
trade. Like, hey, I made this cool art thing, this cool art thing. Like, hey, you wanna buy it from me? Like
Yeah.
that's still something that people want to do. People still want to bake a cake, right, and sell it. Right? People still want to,
Mm-mm.
things like that.
Yeah, there's this concept too about, so look it up, guys, universal basic income, no? So
Mhm.
some governments already provide that, but in a world where everything's very efficient and everything's automated, so what would people do, right? And the same way as Albert mentioned nga, and if there was no labor anymore to do and no people to pay money to, so what would those people do actually, no?
Yeah,
They'll
yeah,
be provided UBI, no? And then humanity would focus more on the more high touch nga things, no? The
yeah.
things that are fuzzy, right? Something that's, parang
The
art
arts.
or
Mhm.
music, right? But even that side nga meron na ring AI eh.
So maybe
But
the
those things,
genuine art, non artificial intelligence art, right? Like,
organic made, human made art.
yeah,
There's a premium na for that, no?
yeah, and we could go down to even like 1 day work weeks,
Yeah.
like and
It's
and,
just
and that
change.
should,
It's just change,
yeah.
really. Like if you boil it down, I mean, I hate to oversimplify, but in any changing environment naman talaga, there's always gonna be some pain, no? There's some shredding off of old skin, and these things are part of the transition. And we as people would have to kind of evolve or adapt to it also. No, so jobs would be. I mean, di ba before, like there used to be so many accountants, and now I think meron pa rin, but it's getting lesser and lesser because there's a lot of tools that replace that already. I think the
Mhm.
workforce now is also involved na more on IT siguro, no? Or meron pa rin mga nursing, mga ganon. But jobs would evolve, no? And in the
Yeah.
same way as jobs today weren't around 50 years ago,
Mhm.
it's gonna be the same. Yeah, it's just these are temporary things, and that's why I said kanina, no, today, you as an individual should really work on upscaling and improving yourself para, you could land a better job maybe, or um, secure your future, I guess, no, in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another question, Bert. That I
Sure.
have.
But
I,
before
I
that, let me just say to the people watching, if you actually have questions, we are taking questions in the comments. And so
yeah,
please
yeah.
do.
Sige,
Okay, go,
guys.
Jerb.
Sige. Um, I think we kind of tackled it, no? Kanina na rin. But what do you expound more on the future? What do you think the future would be like for humans and artificial intelligence? Right? Is it something more of a slave master relationship? Is it more a partner kind of thing? No, na there's not parasitism. Ano nga yan? Parang your mutualism ba? I think, no? Parang is it
Mhm.
gonna be mutual?
Symbiotic
We're in
relationship. Yeah.
symbiotic relationship. Is it gonna be like that, or is it more we're like the doomsday kind of thing, no? Not like the Matrix, or all the sci-fi things that you've seen, like Terminator, right?
Yeah.
AI taking over the world. What do you think the future would be?
So the scary thing here, actually, Jerb, is that actually the three that you mentioned are all possible.
Mm,
Like
mm, mm,
they're
mm.
actually, I would say, they're realistic scenarios of what could happen.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think as a generation, we have to be very intentional that we end up with something that we want, right? Because we
Favorable,
obviously, yeah,
favorable to
we
us.
obviously don't want the Terminator scenario. We also don't want the Matrix scenario. What we want more is a symbiotic relationship
Mm, mm,
with AI. The limitation actually of our human brain is that it's limited within our skull. This is a physical limitation because okay, the bigger the brain usually is, not always, but the bigger the brain is, the more networks it has, the smarter it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But the problem is that because of the birth canal, like we can only fit. We have to have a skull that can only fit that exit into the world, so to speak, or our entrance into the world, right? And that's their limitation, and that's pretty much it. And so our brains can't really grow to become more intelligent, and so we are limited in that sense. Now, with AI, because these are hosted in artificial, environments like data centers, computers, and all these things.
Actually,
they
hindi na
don't-
yun artificial birth. Those are physical, actually. But yeah, wala na siya
They-
sa'yo. Yeah.
Yeah, so the ones in data centers and all, they are not artificial intelligence is not limited
Yeah.
by what do you call this? By space, and so it can become smarter and smarter and smarter. So the one of the ways we can partner is actually to decrease the bandwidth that we interface with the computer, because right now we interface with the computer via voice. When we say like Alexa or Google Home or voice recognition, we interface via keyboard strokes, words per minute, or we interface via mouse clicks or touch screens, and that's how we interface, and that's our bandwidth, right?
Very slow.
It's very slow bandwidth. If you think about it, when you move your arm, right, you didn't even think about it, you just moved your arm, right?
Yeah.
But when you try to do something to the computer, you have to it's a few seconds delay between you and making
The
that
faster
command.
you are, the better you are, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the objectives of this company called Neuralink, right? This is also another Elon Musk investment company. It's basically that where they want to increase the bandwidth where you can actually think and connect to the computer by thinking. Like you can essentially interface with the computer at the speed of your thought. That one is the step one of the problem, right? The step two is actually getting the computer to respond straight back to you at the speed of thought as well, right? So imagine if I would say like, I wonder what 1,438 times 561 is, and then that connects to Google. Google, when you type that out, Google can actually answer you very quickly, right? But it's limited by the speed at which you can type.
Yeah,
Now,
it's still outside your brain, right? I mean, it has to be represented by either audio, video, something, right?
Yes.
Or something that you'd understand, not within, right? Something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the ultimate goal of Neuralink is, instead of saying like, what is the capital of Philippines, and then you look that up by typing what is the capital of Philippines, and then you say, oh, Manila, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you see it, right? It took you like 5 seconds. Instead, you just think, if you have a brain machine interface that's really fast and high bandwidth, you can literally think, what's the capital of Manila? It connects to Google in a split second and responds, and then you get it, like just the same way
In
you
your
get
brain.
memories. Right? Like
Yeah,
when you ask yourself something you already know, like, what's Gerb's family name? Oh, Inahada. Like, I know that. Where does he work? UBX. Like, I know that, right? That's stored somewhere in my brain, and it's brought into my attention in a very, very at the speed of thought.
Correct.
Now, imagine doing that with Google, right? Like, you're connected to AI, right? That can comprehend like what you're thinking. Like, I wonder what's gonna be great for dinner. Suggestions. Like, these are suggestions. Oh, okay. I'll choose the risotto. Okay, how to cook that? Okay, this is how to cook it. Like, and I now know how to cook it. I've never cooked it before. Nobody's taught me, but now I know because I'm connected to a computer, and I'm connected to the network, and the network is artificial intelligent. So I am now have a seamless connection to that.
It's like your Iron Man, but actually better, because there's no heads-up display that you have to, even at that point, actually increases latency ba? Parang there's the processing time is extended because you still have to process what's in front of you, right? I mean, when you
have to
hear
read
Google, yes, exactly. So meron pa yung processing time, whereas it goes directly to your brain. It's already served right away, right? In the same way as what Albert mentioned, you think about my surname, it's Inahada. I don't even have to process anything, right? I just know it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this
Cool,
will literally
cool.
become like the what's his name? Neo in the Matrix, where he downloads kung fu. Like, I want to know kung fu, and he goes like, I know kung fu, right? Like that's it. Right? I now know kung fu. Right? I don't know why I know it, but I
Just
now know it.
SD card na lang napapasok na lang sa brain. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's many steps to this. Actually, if you want to go through this thought experiment, like you can go so many step forward, and actually just imagine like how it can be. But that is a scenario that I would say is still likely to happen, and I think
Mm.
would be
Best
better
case
to
for
happen.
us.
Yeah, rather than like we end up with like fast AI in the hands of a few, right?
True, true, true.
No, actually, think about there's another one side scenario that can happen with Neuralink. Imagine if Neuralink is rolled out, but it's only rolled out to a few germ.
Yeah, to those who can afford it.
Yeah, imagine if it's only rolled out to a few, and then they decide to keep it for themselves. Like they essentially become gods, if you think about
Gods.
it.
Yeah. It's
You
scary.
can,
I mean,
yeah,
their only limit really is life expectancy, right? And that might even be like something that's not going to be a limit in the future, right? I think another logical step would be downloading your consciousness to somewhere, right? I mean, if we're able to understand how the brain works and how, we retain thoughts, all those things that are done right now very organically, I think
yeah,
that might be something that's, parang life is eternal in that case because you're able
yeah,
to ano nga yan? Is it altered carbon that they
yeah. Other crowd,
download,
they
and
have
they
a
can live.
sleep. They have like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Their consciousness is stored in something that you just
Yeah.
plug into like bodies, basically.
Yeah, and it's backed up to the cloud para,
It can be
if something
yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Cool,
That's
cool, cool.
something.
This yeah.
Or
Hey,
another
time check.
sure.
Go ahead, Bert. Go ahead.
I should say, or a more biological aspect would be something like if a if a researcher, a medical researcher, was actually like plugged in, would that person, how much smarter would that person be? How much faster person can connect the dots and process the information, along with a set of other network geneticists, for example, that they could
Yeah.
isolate the gene that causes aging and death, right, and
Mm, mm,
actually
mm. Yeah, it
alter
would
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would expedite a lot of things, no? And that's a
Mhm.
very that's a very um a good way to put it nga din, no? Like what you mentioned na again, in this case it is a tool, right?
Yep.
Because depende pa rin on the one that's
Yep.
using it, the outcome would be different, right? Like what you
We
said,
want
no?
to keep it a tool, Jer, because the AI has the potential to become like in a slow AI
Sentient,
becomes a fast AI, right?
sentient.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It would sentient means it would think for itself, guys. So yeah, and so that would be probably a doomsday scenario for us, no? But yeah, I mean, this is like like with technology, there's always good and bad, right? Like just like when the internet, started, a lot of people also were very concerned about privacy, etc., etc. But without the internet today, we wouldn't be as comfortable, I guess, if you really summarize it, no? Because it's technology, and with cutting edge tech, you know, it's always that today is something na it there's a lot of fears and so it's only parang di natin siya naintindihan or we still don't know the full potential of it. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and that kind of gives us kind of fear, no? And
yeah, Jer,
at the same
the fear
time
is
being
valid.
hopeful. Yeah, yeah.
I
True,
think the
true.
fear is valid because we are at the cusp of change,
Yeah,
and this is
yeah.
a change that we can't do anything about, and
Mm,
it will be a pivot or perish moment for huge groups of society,
yeah.
and I think it's
Do you
not
think
it.
we're near the tipping point, Bert? And that's why you're saying it's a proper cause of concern? Like we're near the tipping point, and right after the tipping point, it's wala na.
It's either good or
It's
bad. It's like really good or
let
really
go of the
bad.
will. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You think
I would say within the next 15 years. Within that 15
within
years.
our life,
Like,
no? Yeah.
think about Jerb, like what if Neuralink rolls out as it promises to next year
Yeah,
and
it's
it actually
crazy,
as
man.
it
I'm actually
promised
very
to.
excited about that too.
Like I would
Uh,
want to plug in right away. Like that would be like I would be one of the beta testers, especially if like
yeah, grabe. I
I
mean
would say
that
that the
those
first
are
people to get that would, well, if it just works, right? Not the first people to get it would like not suffer like stuff, but the first people to get that would definitely relatively become more intelligent or
yeah.
more
It's
intellectually superior than
it's
common people.
scary, no? It's scary to be Elon now. I mean, you know, I if I were a bad guy, I'd be very invested in what he does, right? And if I entertain my bad thoughts, I could think of a lot like getting hands on that would be very crucial for me. So he should be, he should be protecting himself very much. He's
Absolutely.
been, grabe, crazy. Real life Iron Man for sure. No? Yeah, so I think it's 8 p.m. and this
Yeah.
is a very interesting topic, and we'd like to know your thoughts. Now, are there any questions, Baba, on the chat? I
I
didn't
don't see any.
notice. Yeah. So you mind closing us tonight, Bert? Like in summary, like what could you parang leave the viewers with tonight, no?
Yeah,
About
sure.
AI.
Well, there's no denying that AI is already here and it's only accelerating. Its adoption is only being accelerated. AI is not a single thing. AI
Yeah.
is it's a wave of many different things, right? Like you have AI in driving, AI in logistics, you have AI for health and many things.
Photoshop.
So yeah, Photoshop. So in a lot of ways, it makes our lives easier. In a lot of ways, it makes business also easier, right? And so there will be people who will be affected. There are a lot of people who will be affected, both positive and negative. And for the negative ones, um, we'd really have to figure out ways on how to change and adapt. That's definitely one thing that you already have to proactively do now,
Mm. Mm.
because it's just a reality, right? It's just a reality.
Yeah.
When you're a business owner and you're asked to compete, and you have here an AI that can do at the cost benefit analysis much cheaper than a human being could do, it's only a matter of time before they're forced to do it, because it's just a matter of time before their competitor does it, and that drives actually the adoption. So definitely you have to protect yourself and upskill yourself. That's one. Second is, like, as a society, we need to understand and be intentional about the impact that this actually has on us. These are
Correct.
huge changes that are happening, in terms of people actually who will be losing jobs and will need to adjust and may not be able to adjust very quickly. So as a society, we need to be thinking, how do we address this change, this wave of change that's happening, that doesn't result into riots or large amounts of
Joblessness. Yeah.
joblessness, because we don't want that. We don't want that as a society, right? We need to innovate. There was a time in human history that jobs did not exist. Think about that. There was
Mm.
a time in human history where jobs did not exist. Like the Amazon people, they don't have jobs. The tribes that Cherub was saying before, a while ago, they don't have jobs, but they survive, right? They
Yeah.
survive, they thrive, they have families, they enjoy. They didn't have jobs, right?
Mm.
You could say, like, yeah, they worked and they hunted, yeah,
They
but not
probably have
necessarily.
roles lang. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they have roles, and but not necessarily jobs, and they probably don't have a form of money. So that actually form of society actually existed. And then now we have this form of society where we have money, capitalism,
Yeah.
businesses, corporation entities, and now we are now entering, some more change. So what does this future society look like? Let's not get hung up on jobs. Let's think about outside the box and think about, like, how will we create a society where we don't need the horses anymore, right? And the
That's
horses
true.
being like, how, when we don't need, when human beings are being displaced in the workforce, what do we do? How do we design society? We need to take a step back
Mm.
and also redesign the way society works. So
Yeah.
personal level, protect yourself, protect your family, because there's gonna be a ride during the transition. You need to pivot or you're gonna perish. It's gonna hurt a lot because change
Yeah.
hurts. And
Yeah.
second, society, we need to be aware of this and we need to be proactive with our change, that it doesn't result into, like, mishandled, and we don't cooperate with each other, we don't help each other, and we screw this up and we end up with civil war, riots, rebellion, or civil unrest, right?
Mm.
But rather we end up with something that we can transition into a better future, a better end
Yeah.
state, and have the least amount of um, casualties along the way as we make this change and adapt in our sort of like evolutionary journey. as a human civilization.
Correct. So I hope this episode provided a lot of insights and gave you probably a renewed awareness about these kinds of technologies, guys. Right? Like in anything, these are cutting edge tech is always a powerful tool, right? And so again, it really depends now on us as humanity, I guess. No, from a very 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 50,000 macro level point of perspective, na it's up to us what we do with it, no? But at the self level, it's, hey, it's gonna happen. Are you just gonna be a victim, or are you someone who's gonna rise up and improve yourself and look for something to make your future quite secure, I guess. Yeah. All right, cool. So that is it for this episode, guys. If you like it, please like our page on Facebook, CTOs Discuss, as well as in
Share
our
this to your
YouTube
friends.
page. Yes. Please share it to your friends. And we will see you again next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You want to be a developer who is competent by the tech industry standards, but you aren't sure how to get there. OmniQuotient is here to help. By selecting the tech that you use and answering questions belonging to these technologies, you can check if you are currently using the recommended practices in coding. If you aren't, you will learn what these practices are, so you can go ahead, learn them, and become a better developer producing better code. OmniQuotient. Learn how professionals code.